Hello paper crafters, I'm Sunny Sky, and today we're doing a paper piecing strip card showing off some of our designer series paper. So this is really fun because you can use both sides of the paper, you can use everything that coordinates together and just kind of give it all the showcase feature and just add a simple greeting. You'll need a full card for this card. I've cut mine long ways instead of width ways, and it's going to fold at the top, and sort of like an easel card. And then 2 pieces of coordinating cardstock that are 4 by 5 1/4. And one of these we're going to add our strips to and trim down further. And then you'll need 3 or 4 designer series paper pieces that are about 4 inches wide. I've just cut 4-inch squares, and that's going to be plenty for more than one card. So we need to cut our strips, and I'm going to go ahead and cut a couple of pieces at a time. This paper trimmer can handle this, and I want to make sure that if there's any right side up, like most of these flowers seem to be facing up this direction, and the pineapple, I want to make sure that I'm cutting them upright and not sideways. I don't want to end up with sideways pineapples. So I'm going to cut them so that they'll be facing correctly. And basically you're going to just take your strips and cut them at angles so that there's a wider and a narrower end. And then as you bring them off the cutter, I like to keep them kind of lined up still so I know what order I cut them in. And you're just going to cut, if you have a 4-inch square like I do, you're going to cut it into 4 or 5 pieces. And if you've got another couple of sheets, then you're going to go ahead and cut those the same. They don't have to exactly line up. We've got a little give because of the size that we've done our cardstock so that we can trim them up a little bit at the end. All right, so those are kind of the pieces there. Let me get my piece of this is Grapefruit Grove, and I've cut up some other pieces in advance as well, and I'm going to kind of place them on my card. And I'm going to get from the second sheet there, and then the third one. And if I was going to do just this simple, this one color, I could do that, and then I could go ahead and add that down at the bottom here and kind of do that. But I want to pull in some more colors as well. And this does have another image on the back side, but I think I'm going to stick with more floral and leaves for this card. So I think we'll do kind of the leaves and the flowers, and that looks like it actually needs to be right side up that way. And I think I need one that's a little bit wider to fit in there. So you can see where if you are cutting them all at the same time and using them as you cut them, that will kind of help you get it lined up well. And let me find another leaf one here. I'm going to throw in that. I think I want to have a little thin one there. And maybe we want to go back and forth with this and get a wide one down here. Okay. All right, I think I like that look. And you can see I have so many strips left over. So this is enough to do a lot of cards. So I'm going to go ahead and put this right at the base of this cardstock. This one is a square cut one, so it can go right at the edge. We are going to trim down this Grapefruit Grove. So as we're cutting these, or as we're placing these, we're going to allow a little bit of space between. And because I'm angling it, there's going to be some where you see part of it is not covering the cardstock there. And that is absolutely fine because we need to trim this down because this piece of cardstock is the same size as the layer that it's going to go on. And that one shows even more where there's some more that's going to be trimmed off there. But we're going to trim on both sides, so that is going to work for us. And you can do this with any paper that you like. And this paper is retiring on the 2nd of June, so I'm going to have to find another fun paper to do this with. But I also tend to hoard my papers and not want to use them, so this is a good excuse for me to actually get to using them. All right, so we'll bring back in the paper trimmer here. And I've got a square edge on the bottom, so I kind of want to go with that, knowing that I've got that square edge, and trim off so that I'm going to cut off all those little bits. And you have to trim kind of firmly because you've got a couple layers there, and one is a cardstock layer. And I'm just kind of looking at this and going, okay, my other layer was 4 inches. I'm going to take it down to 3 3/4, which means it's going to be a 1/2 inch narrower than the full card width. So as I turn this way, my full card is 5 1/2, so I'm going to take it down to 5 inches, so it'll again be a 1/2 inch narrower than the full card. And that's how I'm going to make sure that my layers line up well. And you can see here that there was enough room that where those pieces of cardstock, because they weren't quite straight, or the designer series paper, trim it, because we're going to trim it off, it gives us room. So if you're doing 4-inch strips and you know you're going to trim this down to 3 3/4, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to make that transition. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add this onto this layer. And the Grapefruit Grove is just very subtly peeking out between the layers of designer series paper. You also could do this where you don't have any cardstock showing through, where it's just paper and paper and paper. But I wanted to have some of that Grapefruit Grove peeking through. Look at that. I just love all this fun color. Here's another one that I did. Here's one that uses some of the subtler pieces and some of the bolder pieces. Again, you have to make sure that those images are right side up. There's another one. These I have not turned into full cards yet. There's another one. And this one, I used the back sides of all the designer series paper, so it's got a more subtle look. That was my sample that I started with. But I want to use one of these bolder ones now to finish this off. So I've used these stamped images, and I've already die cut my little flower and stamped it very subtly, just Grapefruit Grove on Grapefruit Grove. And I'm going to add some glue dots to this, to the back of this flower, just to the center, because I'm going to add my ribbon. Now we're using the braided burlap trim. And it comes, let me just show you, it is like this when it comes, but I've just taken the ends and just distressed them a little bit to get some angling out. And then I took one piece and I distressed it so much that I'm actually able to pull off individual fibers. Okay, pull out individual fibers. And we're going to take our little trinkets, and I've just strung a single fiber through the leaf there. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap that around this braided trim, the full piece of braided trim. Kind of loosely, because I want to be able to adjust it a little. And then I'm going to attach this braided trim to the card with some glue dots. Got that one on my finger a little bit. Okay, so I've just glued it down on both sides of the little charm that we've got going there. And maybe I'll just angle it a little here. I've got my glue dot here for the center of my flower, but I'm also going to add a couple of dimensionals, and I think I'll use the mini dimensionals just on a couple of the edges of this flower. Because that braided trim is kind of thick, and I want to just adhere my flower to the card itself. That'll just help support it a little more. Put that up under there. And then here's the little Aloha die cut. And that's going to be hard to glue, right? Because it's so thin. But we have our fine tip glue pen with our needle point on it. And so I'm just going to add some little bitty dabs of glue on this, kind of where the lines of the letters intersect. It's a little bit thicker there, and so I'm going to choose to add my glue there just for that slight bit of extra thickness. And some of this Aloha is going to stick off the edge of the flower. and that's fine because there's enough pieces glued to hold it on there. And then I'm just going to use my finger to kind of support, get that needle tip back in that fine tip glue pen. I love that it never gets clogged up because you've got that tip that goes right down inside the tip. All right, so there's that card. Here is the one that has a little bit more subtle background with the backs of the designer series paper. And then we have all these other fun options that I've done. I guess I should show you a full card on the top. But anyways, I've just enjoyed playing with the different papers, and I appreciate that you've joined me today. So get out your paper stash. I know you're hoarding some, and go have some fun crafting.